Good afternoon, Sin enthusiasts! My name is Kaskozhuk, and welcome back to another Limbus Company ID review. Now, a lot of fuss has been going around about new IDs, how there's tremor this and tremor that, and every single one of them is shaking up the metagame in some way or another, especially talked about on YouTube, specifically if you are sweaty, or a gamer, or old, or any combination of the three. Today, we have yet another new batch of new tremor IDs being added into the mix, both following along the same type of lines. Oh, there's one thread. Don't ask about that. We have T-Corp Class 3 Collection Staff Don Quixote, who is rocking the insanely snazzy T-Corp jumpsuit with the giant pickaxe and the chainsaw arm, making her our third Chainsaw Man reference in this game. I'll let you try to figure out who the first one was. And we also additionally have, if it'll scroll over at any point, but apparently it likes showing off all of her equipment, even though we are going to get to that in a minute anyways. Any second now. I'm running out of ways to delay this. Please? There she is. T-Corp Class 2 Collection Staff Rodian. Now, you might recognize Rodian as the sinner who has not received a new ID, a new 2-star ID for literally over a year. This is her first one since. Now, the T-Corp collection staffs are both tremor IDs with self-tremor. So, we're going to start by extracting the both of them, and then we will get into the ID by ID and analyze their kits, and then we will show them off in battle for a little while.
이런 구질구질한 색의 고기를 시간 내서 먹고 있다니. 차라리 아예 색을 모른 채 자랐으면 좋았을 텐데. 이제는 저항이도 소용없어. 시간을 땡겨온 나는 너희보다 빠를 테니까.
Alright, enough of that nonsense. We're going back to the old style. I can't keep up that amount of energy for an entire video. A restaurant in T-Corp.
Behold this glorious piece of steak! 'Tis practically dripping with juice!
The child's co-worker cheerfully chomps on a mouthful of juicy steak and savors its flavor. I've got to say, we really chose a great place for lunch. The other co-worker appears just as jolly as he happily wipes his mouth with a napkin. The food was, going by the reactions from everyone else, nothing short of delicious. But the child was glaring at the piece of steak at the tip of her fork, as though she was eyeing something that wasn't even food. This sucks. She probably knows that the steak is, if she could bring herself to bite into it, very delicious. I don't know why that was hard for me to read. It was simply that the sickly yellow-brown color of the steak did nothing to excite the child's taste buds. The sepia monochrome steak inspired nothing but disgust, which was very apparent from her repulsed expression. After staring and poking half-heartedly at the piece of steak, the child let out a deep sigh and put down her fork.
What is it, Rhodia? Thou appeareth quite miffed today.
It's nothing. I guess I just don't have the appetite today.
That is quite the conundrum. Thine work-related stress must be relieved in some way, no? That is why we have chosen this delicious meal to be our vehicle for joy. Now, lift thine wine glasses, 'tis a toast.
Like, now? It's only midday, though.
A dash of alcohol in thy bloodstream may help with work efficiency indeed.
She's not wrong. It ain't like we get a chance for this kind of outing very often, yeah? Her coworker was right. T-Corp employees of different classes rarely dined together. Because they all lived in varying hours of a given day, most T-Corp employees preferred to dine with those living in similar timescales. To dine together without making each other uncomfortable, their only choice was to go to a restaurant under the TT4 protocol. And those restaurants were usually out of low-ranking staff's budget ranges. They chose a place that serves colorless food in hopes of saving a bit of money while indulging as much as they can often afford to. Because this restaurant isn't adorned with the expensive color-returning lamps, its prices are on the more affordable side of things. Fine. Cheers, alright? Cheers. Let's do a toast. The child hesitated, then raised her glasses for a toast. She did not want to be the one to ruin this cheery mood, after all. The brown contents of the wine glass disgusted her still. She nevertheless tried her best to suppress that look of revulsion from being too apparent. Of course, it took a lot of effort to maintain that level of composure, and the child rose from her seat. Her food was still untouched. Leaving already? It's the illegal inventions crackdown period, you know? I gotta get back to work or I won't make my time quota.
I did hear that we have been redoubling our regulation enforcement efforts. Try not to overwork thyself.
Who knows? Maybe I'll nab that promotion soon. Anyways, see you around. Yeah, see you around. The child departed the restaurant for the back streets of T-Corp. Her job today consisted of conducting on-site report verification, contacting the Technology Administration Agency with her findings, and retrieving any and all unregistered inventions.
Alright, we'll be confiscating all your unregistered inventions. As for your fines, according to the updated manuals, it'll be 8 hours for each item, which adds up to 40 hours. Now cough it up.
40 hours? Wasn't it 7 hours per item last time?
The higher-ups raise the fines and tax rates in general. What can I do? What's with that look, huh? What, you want to take this to the collections office and go through each and every single one of these items? Is that what you want?
Well, no, but in truth, there weren't any changes made to the time tax rates. The child was just giving him an inflated number to skim a little bit off the top for her personal use. Embezzlement is a common practice among the lower-ranking, underpaid collection staff at T-Corp. They fine people for more than they owe and take the surplus time for themselves. Most citizens of T-Corp already know this, but they simply allow it to happen because they don't want to risk beefing with a collector, which is usually more trouble than it's worth.
Besides, you should consider yourself lucky that it's me you're dealing with. The other guys would have tried to rip you off for 10 hours per item or something ridiculous like that.
Hey, hands off the timepiece. Child quickly stopped the inventor from reaching the timepiece hanging from his waist. Even the time-rich can't immediately make use of the abundance of time they have within the same day. But if they've already readied and stored enough time the day before, they can accelerate themselves merely by touching their timepieces. But it wasn't his watch that the inventor was going for.
Is that a tool?
Well, you know what? You can sod right off. I ain't got the time to spare for one of you collectors anyways. That may have been a signal. People holding all kinds of construction equipment slowly emerged from the alleyways of the back streets. Clearly, he wasn't planning to pay the fine anyway.
Oh my, you're a popular one, aren't you?
You take 40 hours from me and I've got to live 4-hour days for an entire week. That ain't living at all, lass.
You should be grateful that the 4-hour policy even exists.
Child flinched as they began to surround her, but she soon regained her composure and slowly started turning the clockwork on her watch. The clockwork rattles and turns, and her body begins to shimmer with after-images. The T-Corp Collector's standard issue watch. Once she depletes all the time that is assigned to her for the mission, she'll have to resort to using her own time. But the child decided to spend it anyway.
I don't want to waste my precious time on people like you, but looks like I haven't got a choice.
There is no response. Well, to be more precise, their response was too slow for her to understand. The attackers crowd around her, wildly swinging their weapons and tools in her direction, but it's all futile. Moving in condensed time, even for a brief moment, was more than enough for her to casually avoid every sluggish haymaker, every wild swing her enemies attempted. With every rapid step she takes, the greater the fear grows on the faces of her enemies.
I know you can't hear me, but I gotta say my piece. You'll pay dearly for wasting my time.
Oh, just you wait till I'm done with you. She's gonna steal their time and their balls. Sorry. That's probably improper. Okay, T-Corp Class 2 Collection Staff Rodeo. These IDs are tanky. Oh boy. Are tanky. I don't know why clicking closes this. Weak to pierce, resistant to slash. Weak to pierce has become very common recently, and I'm not sure how to feel about it. Very fast. Well, decently fast. Very high defense level. This is a tank ID, which I was not expecting based on what it had written on it. First off, passives. Golden Time Standoff. 5 sloth owned. On turn end, if this unit's HP is between 16% and 20%. Instantly heal up to 60% of max HP and recover from stagger once per encounter. Okay. That's literally golden time. When clashing against targets with Time Moratorium, clash power +2, and take 10% less damage from targets with Time Moratorium. We'll get into Time Moratorium in a minute when we go over her skills. Support passive T-Court Martial Arts, 3 Sloth Resonance, to 1 ally with the fastest speed, clash power +1 when clashing against targets with 5+ tremor. Is this just a weaker version of Rose Banner Merceau's support passive, I think? Yeah, it's actually genuinely just weaker than Rose Banner Merceau's, but it does activate off of Sloth instead of Gloom, so it might actually be easier to activate in a Tremor team. And let's be honest, 5 Tremor and 1 Tremor is not that big of a difference in most Tremor teams nowadays, so really it's just about the same. Alright, defense skill next. Borrow Time, 12 to 16 block skill. Combat start, this is on the coin. Combat start, if this unit is not in a borrowed time state, gain 3 borrowed time at turn end once per turn. On use for this turn, when hit by an enemy, inflict 2 tremor on target exchange. Up to 2 times per turn. So borrowed time is something that enemies have had, but now we can have it. At turn end, at 2+ count, gain borrowed time count -1, haste, clash power up, and fragile next turn. Okay. And if this unit is set to gain more bind than haste next turn, the borrowed time effect expires at the next turn start, and this unit gets staggered. Important to note that is only if they have 2+ count. I misread this when the IDs were first revealed, and so if you're at 1 count, it won't stagger you. And at 1 count at turn end, gain 2 borrowed time stack -1 bind. Next turn, it's just using the word stack instead of the word potency for some reason. I see. So at turn end, you gain 1 potency and lose 1 count. But the turn end effect for the other thing goes based on the count and not the potency, so it's really odd. But anyways, it's so you can have more clash power and haste. So if you want a really fast tank, this is the first tank that can realistically do that consistently, I suppose. Skill 1, Prepare to Collect. It is a 3 to 11 Blunt Envy skill with 2 coins. On use, gain +2 tremor count. On use, if the target has 6+ tremor, clash power +1. Interesting that this is on use and not just an effect. Coin 1 inflicts 1 tremor. Coin 2, on hit, gain 1 tremor count, and a hit after Clash Win, inflict 1 tremor count. Hit after Clash Win is an interesting one. There have been a couple IDs that have this. Sync Don Quixote and Sync Sinclair, I think, are the only 2. And it's a pretty rare conditional. But this skill doesn't clash super well. It's like a 4 to 12 in a clash with no bonuses at this point. Why does she have +1? Oh, wait. This is -1 defense level. I forgot I got her to level 45. +1 offense level. So it's a tank with minus defense level? That's bizarre. Skill 2, T-Court Martial Suppression. It's a 4 to 14 Blunt Wrath skill with 2 coins. On use, gain 2 tremor count. On use, if the target has 6+ tremor, clash power +1. On hit, gain 2 tremor count, and hit after Clash Win, inflict 2 tremor count, but only on the first coin. This is a really weak skill based on what we've been getting recently. Actually. Like, you can get a decent amount of tremor count. I have a feeling that these IDs are built around borrowed time, from the looks of it, because they have to Clash Win, but their actual clash strength is on the lower end for IDs, is what I'm seeing so far, which is strange. Skill 3, Execute Collections, is a... Hold on, let me do some math in my head. A 2 to 14 Blunt Sloth skill with 4 coins. This is a unique base power, coin power combination, being a 2+3 with 4 coins on a skill 3. If the target has 8+ tremor, clash power +1. On use, consume 8 tremor count on self to gain coin power +1. So that's what, 2 to 18? Which isn't terrible. Coin 1 inflicts 2 tremor count, coin 2 inflicts 1 tremor, coin 3 inflicts 2 tremor, Coin 4 inflicts 1 bind next turn, and if this unit is in a borrowed time state, inflict 2 Time Moratorium. Time Moratorium says does not take any damage as long as this effect is active. Store all damage received instead. Combat End. If there is only 1 count left of this effect, the effect triggers Tremor Burst, and after dealing 100 plus the stack times 15% of stored damage as sloth damage. So if you deal 100 damage, it deals 115 sloth damage. On turn end, gain 1 potency and lose 1 count. It'll always have a potency of at least 2 when it goes off, basically, is how it reads. The Time Moratorium will immediately expire after triggering the Tremor Burst and the Sloth damage effect if another instance of Time Moratorium is inflicted on a unit with Time Moratorium. Oh, okay, so if you do it again, if you inflict it again, it just automatically triggers its effect. It does the Sloth damage and triggers a Tremor Burst, and then it expires if you try to inflict it to an enemy who already has it. So that's interesting. You could pop it early if you really wanted to. I don't know a good scenario for why you would want to do that, but I guess it's an option. 8 Tremor count on self doesn't seem too hard to get to. Most of these skills get... You would have to use 3 other skills at uptime 3. Okay, uptime 4. Skill 1 gains Clash Power +1 for every 6 Tremor on the target, up to 2, instead of just being capped at 1, so that's fine. And inflict 1 additional Tremor potency on the first coin, okay. Skill 2 gains the same bonus as Skill 1, and deals 5% more damage for every bind on the target, up to 15%, okay. And hit after Clash Win of the first coin inflicts an additional Tremor count, and then coin 2 gains on hit inflict 1 bind next turn, and on hit if the target has 6+ Tremor, inflict 1 bind next turn. I see. She really likes to gain effects that inflict bind, I see. Skill 3 deals 5% more damage for every bind on the target, up to 20%, gains an additional Clash Power from the first on use effect, inflicts an additional Tremor count with coin 1, and coin 4. On hit, if this unit consume Tremor count with skill use, inflict 2 bind next turn, and trigger Tremor Burst, then reduce target's Tremor count by 1. Interesting. Borrow Time gains 3 base power, and can inflict Tremor up to 6 times per turn instead of twice. It's certainly interesting. So the main issue with this ID is that it conflicts with a spot for Rose Spanner Rhodia in Tremor. And the interesting thing is that I can genuinely see a reason to use this ID, specifically because it's self-Tremor. I think it would fit well in a Tremor team, and that's because you could have European Diva Ryoshu on the bench to gain more Tremor count on self. I don't know why you'd want to do that on Rhodia. There's already like 3 other IDs that would want it more, specifically Honglu. And the main downside the upside to this is that this ID actually has better Clash Power on average than Rose Spanner does, for whatever reason. It does not have better Sin Affinities. You trade being able to get Sloth by using a skill that isn't your block, and getting more Envy for being able to generate Gloom and Pride entirely. In Tremor, Wrath does matter a little bit. If you bring Rose Spanner Merceau, you want to be able to use Regret, because it's just a good Tremor ego. It isn't really used anywhere else, though. And Pride and Gloom, in addition to Sloth, are both, like, the most important Sin Affinities for Tremor teams. Effervescent Corrosion on Rhodia needs Sloth, Gloom, and Pride. Cavernous Wailing Honglu needs Sloth, Gloom, and Pride. Everlasting Faust needs Sloth, Gloom, Pride, and Lust. The Lust doesn't really matter, you can get enough of that. What else is there? Is there really anything else? Is it just those 3? I think it's just those 3 that you really need to worry about feeling. And you're losing good generation for those. as a result of this ID not having pride or gloom. Generating envy is nice. You can feel stuff like fluid sac, which you will have in the team. And that's really the only thing I can think of off the top of my head. Oh, other good things that Sloth, Gloom, and Pride fuel. Both Pursuances, which are probably going to be in your Tremor teams, because they're Pursuance, it's healing, it's really easily fueled by the team, and you're not going to have access to it. So that's a little awkward. But I think there's a good argument to be made to use this ID over that one just because it clashes better. That's like the most frustrating part of using Rose Spanarodia, is that she doesn't clash very well except for their skill 3.
아, 실례하겠네. 본인은 T사 3등급 직원으로 시간 징수를 맡고 있는 몸일세. 왜 왔는지는 알고 있겠지?
Done.
시간 징수 집행. 혹시나 그대의 시간이 잘못 빨려 들어갈 수 있으니 거리에 주의하게나.
So Dawn is interesting because she exists. Oh my god, I thought that was a real doorbell.
Ho there, art thou home?
The child boastfully calls upon the homeowner. She stands in front of a house in some average-looking residential area. Flanking her are other uniformed individuals, also patiently waiting for the stubbornly shut door to open.
I sense naught in the way of responses.
I mean, we've kind of been crowding in front of his door and demanding him to come out. Heck, I wouldn't leave my home if I was him.
Peace! Speak not of which that thou knowest not. There must be aught that nags him verily. 'Tis said that the hearts of the guilty are telltale hearts. I believe that the same outcome would have awaited me had I visited him all on my lonesome.
Well, maybe we don't always have to start our job by confidently banging on their front doors like this.
There are procedures to these procedures.
The child whispered something to the other child standing behind her before straightening her back and clearing her voice.
Hark! I am a T-Corp Class 3 staff, and I carry with me the authority to collect thy time. I have awaited for thine answer for 5 minutes upon arrival in accordance with our procedures, and have even produced this identification with watch to prove mine identity. Yet thou art yet to respond in any fashion. Thus do I declare that any further refusal to comply shall be met with swift punishments befitting thy crime of tax evasion. Time Collector is an odd profession unique to T-Corp. In this district, the use of time manipulation isn't only for speeding up or slowing down someone's day. Time itself is also used as a currency, and as a part of the economic system, it is only natural that it would be subject to taxation. Most people with time debt are quite good with making their payments. People working for a halfway decent company often have their time expenses covered by the company, or are provided with extra time as part of the employee benefits. However, there are two kinds of people who often fail to pay their time taxes. First are those who, in their greed, intentionally maneuver around having to pay their taxes despite their immense wealth. And the second are the destitute ones, those who could not keep up with the exponentially rising time tax interest. Some may condemn the former and take pity on the latter, but eventually all choose to remain silent before the seemingly fair and equal notion that the collectors come to claim time from both the rich and the poor. But this system is but an illusion of equality, because an hour's worth of time to a rich man is quite different from an hour's worth to a poor man. There is nothing fair or equal about this. However, given the confident tone of the child's voice, despite her clear knowledge of this inequality, it is quite likely that the owner of this house is someone of the former category. No responses, is it? Unjust villain!
Her enthusiasm is a good indicator of whether the collection target is someone of the former or the latter. Whenever she has to collect time from the latter, her enthusiasm completely sizzles out, and she practically drags her feet to get the job done. Are you sure he's home?
Forsooth, I have meticulously studied the time use records of this long-term tax evader, classification number 973001537. It hath been confirmed that an instance of temporal acceleration was activated within the building a mere 3 hours ago, and remains within the building's premises. In other words, this villain is completely ignoring our orders despite hearing our every word. The coward hides behind the walls of this home, waiting in bated breath for our departure.
You're unusually prepared today. I remember how you were during the Backstreets collection job. Didn't you stop and complain every few steps that you wanted something to eat?
Now that the homeowner's lack of intent to respond hath been verified, Rhodia, ram the gates. Gotcha. Whew, I do enjoy this door kicking part of my job.
The door shatters to pieces with a loud bang. Ugh, what the hell? This is trespassing, I'll have you know. You destroyed my door.
Oh, trespassers are we? Verily, 'tis quite apparent that thou art unaware that we were allowed to enter any property without a warrant, should we espy a probable cause.
Oh shit. Still, this is completely unreasonable. How can you possibly justify making me, a kind, innocent, and poor man, pay them that much in taxes? This is
accelerating.
The tax evader should not have said that. The child's voice, which had been enthusiastically lighthearted until this moment, suddenly cooled into a deep, icy tone. There was a brief click of the clockwork before the child turned into a blur, and she burst forth in an explosion of speed as she entered the accelerated time.
My timepiece warns me that mine assigned hours for work purposes is running low, yet I shan't spare any expense for the likes of thee.
The massive pickaxe held in her hand slammed into the tax evader.
Worry not for thy health. This collection pickaxe doth not affect the physical body, contrary to mine wishes that it would, that is.
Just as the child said, the pickaxe wasn't touching the tax evader. It was floating slightly above his flesh. Because the dial was set to time collection mode, it won't dish out any physical harm. But his time was getting siphoned up into the pickaxe through that tiny gap as though it was a syringe drawing fluid into its container.
Kind, innocent, and poor, is it?
There is still some time until the proper amount of time is siphoned through the pickaxe, so the child takes that moment to have a look around the house. Several trinkets that immediately caught her eye when the co-worker smashed through the door comes into view.
That item there is a limited edition trinket from the famous artisan from the east of the nest, is it not? It is said that their shop operates only under the highest possible level of acceleration, limiting its sales only to those beyond a certain level of affluence,
Oh, I know that store.
It's a novelty store for the rich folks, right? That store that just opens and shuts its doors in an instant so that regular Joes can't even try to enter. Indeed, certainly it hardly appeareth to be an item that a poor person may have in their possessions, no? I have aught else to condemn thee with, yet it appeareth that thy time hath slowed out of sync with our own already.
The child mutters solemnly before dislodging her pickaxe from the tax evader.
Let the following truths be clearly understood by thee as thou remainest what is that word? Gowled here? In decelerated time, able to do naught as the world outside passes thee with thy nary a care. The loss thou hath inflicted upon others in thy greed, in thy extortion of those who are truly destitute, in thy reluctance to pay what is due. Collections completed for classification numbers 97300153007.
I always enjoy watching these time-rich dumbasses slow to a crawl after getting bonked by that time pickaxe. Look, it'll take a whole 30 minutes for him to take that next step. The child and her companions left the decelerated tax evader, who was now moving slower than a sloth, and exited the building through the broken door. One must wonder how much it would cost to fix that broken door. Well, that is, if he even manages to make it out the door before the sun sets. Probably deserved, honestly. Alright. T-Corp Class 3 Collection Staff Don Quixote. Yeah, that's a tank. That's a real tank, I believe. In fact. 49 defense level, jeez. And still 4 to 7 speed. That is fast for a tank. That's really good. Passives first. Golden Time Extracting. Turn end if this unit's HP is between 10% and 20%. So it's actually got a wider range than Rhodia's. Instantly heal 80% of this unit's max HP and recover from stagger once per encounter. And when this unit loses borrowed time, gain 8 aggro to one of this unit's skill slots next turn. Good lord. Okay. That's a lot of aggro. Yeah, these are definitely built around using borrowed time, and once again weak to Pierce, unfortunately. Then T-Corp Physics Distortion Field, 3 Sloth owned. When one ally with the slowest speed takes damage from enemies with Tremor, take 10% less damage. Okay. That's like fine. You'd probably want her in the Tremor team though, right? I don't know, I haven't looked at her skills yet. 4 borrowed time! This one doesn't activate on the coin? That's interesting. I shall summon the time. It is a 12 to 17 block. 4 borrowed time instead of 3. Yeah, this ID is probably going to want to open a fight using borrowed time, or at least have it when you are using your skill 3. I don't know how this is going to limit their actual effectiveness, being forced to use a block early into a fight in order to be able to get their stats going. I genuinely have no idea how that's going to make them play. And then the on-use effect is the same as Rhodia's, at least up tie 3. So skill 1, let us prepare to collect. It is a 3 to 11 blunt gluttony skill with 2 coins. On use, gain 2 tremor count if the target has 6 plus tremor, clash power plus 1, and gain 3 aggro to the skill slot next turn, and the second coin inflicts 2 tremor on hit. 3 aggro is not enough to be worth talking about. This skill seems weaker than Rhodia's, oddly enough. The gluttony is nice, I suppose. Skill 2, T-Corp Accelerated Amputator. It is a 4 to 16 slash pride skill with 3 coins. On use, gain 3 tremor count if the target has 6 plus tremor, clash power plus 1. Coin 1, consume up to 3 tremor on the target and gain the same amount of tremor count on self. That consumes potency, which is interesting. Coin 2 inflicts 3 tremor, so you just inflict it back. And coin 3, on hit, if this skill's coin effects consume tremor on the target, trigger tremor burst, then reduce target's tremor count by 1. Hopefully that would be activating every single use, but you never know. That's a pretty good skill too. I just noticed her thing is equal, so that's nice. And then skill 3, I command thee halt. It is a 2 to 14 sloth blunt skill with 4 coins. That's a really bad rolling skill 3. We haven't had bad rolling skill 3s on 3 stars in a while. The only one that comes to mind is G-Corp Gregor, who has a 4 to 12. If the target has 6 plus tremor, clash power plus 1, consume 10 tremor count on self to gain coin power plus 2. So this turns into a 2 to 22. That's good, to say the least. Coin 2, on hit, inflict 2 tremor. Coin 4, on hit, if the target has 10 plus tremor, consume 10 tremor on the target and inflict 2 time moratorium. If this unit is in a borrowed time state, this effect does not consume the target's tremor. Okay. And also, if the target's speed is slower than this unit's, trigger amplitude conversion into tremor chain. Tremor chain has actually been in the game already. Tremor chain says lose 1 clash power for every 10 tremor potency on self up to 3, and that is the only functional difference between it and any other type of tremor. This is a good tremor variant for early into a fight. Late into a fight, maybe not as much, because you don't really need to worry about clashing as much later into a fight unless the skill is really high rolling to begin with. But it is just a really easy to inflict amplitude conversion, so who knows? Being able to inflict time moratorium without being in borrowed time is really interesting, though I think you'll probably want to do this while in borrowed time anyways, because that way you don't consume any tremor potency. Alright, up tie 4, we gain on skill 1, gain clash power plus 1 for every 6 tremor on the target, so the same thing that Rhodia gets, and gain an additional aggro. Wait, no. Coin 1 says gain 4 aggro to the skill slot next turn. So skill, that's new. Wait. There hasn't been a skill before that gains aggro on hit. So that's brand new. She's the first unit that does this. Does it... That's a lot of aggro for a skill 1, actually. That's 7 aggro for skill 1. That's kind of crazy, actually. Wow. Skill 2, same bonus. Consume up to 3 tremor on target and gain double the amount consumed as tremor count, and also inflict tremor count consumed -1 bind next turn, so this can inflict up to 2 bind. That's pretty good. And that's the only difference on this one. Skill 3 gains 2 base power. Wait a minute, that's unnecessary, so it becomes a 4 to 24. Gains an additional clash power. If the target has bind, gain additional clash power as well. Coin 3 just becomes able to inflict 3 tremor, which is neat. Coin 4 gains the ability to inflict tremor burst by reducing the count by 1. That's neat. Block becomes a sloth, and 15 to 20 inflicts an additional tremor up to 6 times per turn. Okay, that seems decent. Tanks have always been in this weird position in Limbus where they're really good if you just want to get through a fight without having to worry about dying, but in actual, like, hard content, they're usually passed over because they don't have the highest damage ever. But this is Tremor, and Tremor means that you can turn any Tremor Burst skill into a skill that can inflict 99 sloth damage whenever you want. So it'll probably be one of the best tanks in the game, at the very least. We'll have to see how it plays out in an actual fight, though. Alright, so I've chosen to test these out in this fight again, because unfortunately you cannot bring Don Quixote into any of the time-killing time stages. So, yeah. We're gonna play these how I assume they're meant to be played, and just get borrowed time immediately. If you're wondering why Merceau is the last one, I think it's just because he's the best option for a 6th team slot in Tremor, and there's gonna be a lot of people that disagree with that, but that's okay. That offsets a guard. Okay. Now these IDs really rely on having Sloth, I suppose. You're not clashing, I just have to use that. I have no idea how reliable these IDs are going to actually be, but they're going to have borrowed time, so we're at least going to get to see that. So yeah, they're going to gain a lot of haste, fragile, and bind. No, haste, fragile, and clash power up. Also, Dawn gets her mask on when she's in borrowed time state, so that's cool. Let's see how actually reliable these turns them. I could use this skill right now, but there's probably not... I mean, I inflict time moratorium if I do, right? So I might as well. Okay. Good job, Otis. This is the one big issue with these IDs. If you want them to have borrowed time during the fight, you have to sacrifice their first turn, the turn where you would most probably want to get sanity, in order to gain borrowed time instead, which isn't that big of a deal if you put them as one of your first slots. That did not inflict time moratorium, I think because that enemy didn't have any tremor. Right? Is that how that works? I think that's how that works. Also, the fall off from the Clash power-up does get a little bit iffy, in my opinion. But that might just be me as well. I mean, at least they look really cool. I'll give them that. All of the newish IDs have looked really awesome, and I'm glad we actually finally have a T-Corp ID. We've been fighting T-Corp enemies since Chapter 4. Ooh. Voice modulation. I didn't expect that. Okay, and now Rhodia no longer has borrowed time, so she's very slow. But one thing I can take advantage of with that is just have her block this turn, because there's not going to be any reason for her to clash right now anyways. So there's no real reason for her to, you know, do anything. I'll actually save that. And again, the big downside with bringing T-Corp Rhodia is lack of gloom and pride. Okay, that was just unfortunate. I don't think that there's a big downside to bringing Dawn over Ryoshu. And the big reason I say that is because oh, that enemy has time moratorium. Okay, I'm beginning to notice an issue. I can't kill an enemy that has time moratorium. Or I can. Never mind. Not entirely sure how that happened, but I'll take it. So, yeah, I guess the cool part about these is that on the turn that you have bind, you can just block to get your borrowed time back, and that is nice. We're not even at the boss wave yet, game. Chill out. I'm gonna lose a lot of sanity, but I really just do not care. It seems like... I don't actually know what they're meant to do. Like, Time Moratorium does a lot of damage, obviously, but... you know... it does stop you from dealing damage mid-turn. So I don't know if that trade-off is necessarily worth it. I don't know if that'll extend a fight by a turn under bad situations. Because of the order of operation. Well, I guess it happens on turn end, so it wouldn't extend the fight. I'm not going to use that this turn, because I think I'm killing all of them. Perish? Okay. I thought I was inflicting Time Moratorium there. I don't think I was. Actually, I definitely would have been, because I have borrowed time right now. That's okay. It doesn't really feel like the bind turn is that big of a downside either, I've noticed. Because again, you can just end whatever wave you're on a bind turn and not have to worry about it, right? Because now we just get more speed. Like, I've been getting kind of lucky with Rhodia, actually, having her always gain bind on the last turn of a wave. It's really convenient. Okay. I haven't been gaining a lot of sanity this fight. I know that's just because these are sinking enemies. And so they drain your sanity. But, Merceau is struggling a bit. Here, I'll just have him use... No, that's a terrible idea, actually. I need him to actually win a clash, is the problem. And he's just not going to be able to do that. Not in this state, anyways. I don't know, Dawn seems pretty good. Jesus, that's a lot of damage. I don't know if the Moratorium effect is working properly. I feel like it should be able to inflict tremor, or inflict it even if the enemy doesn't have tremor, which is the thing that I'm noticing isn't happening. Holy crap! Same term offense level down, mattering. What the heck? Oh no, that enemy has Moratorium. So what the heck? Merceau wins a clash. He won both his clashes this turn, actually. Okay. One thing I am noticing is that this team doesn't necessarily inflict a lot of tremor. And that's obviously something you would want in a tremor team, is the ability to inflict it. They're fun IDs. They seem a little slow. Why the heck? You have you have paralysis, that's why. Yeah, they seem like... not slow as in they have low speed. Slow as in they ramp up very slowly. Like, borrowed time does give them a ton of clash power and makes them really reliable. But Time Moratorium makes it take additional turns to kill enemies, potentially. Like here, this guy's just gonna die, because they already have it. Yeah. That was 500 oh, that was 500 damage. Jesus. Maybe I'm just wrong. But at the same time, in most boss fights, in areas where it'll matter, you would need both to take full advantage of the Time Moratorium, not slowing you down by a turn. Because otherwise you're just inflicting it and then you have to wait 2 turns, because there's no way you're getting another skill 3 in time, right? And I'm past the point in the fight where I think I need borrowed time to begin with. Okay. Good job, Merceau. That's... where are these coins coming from? I've never read that skill before. This is a good chance it just gives her more coins. Which is really obnoxious, actually. That's a lot of Tremor Burst. Too bad it doesn't matter. They're interesting, I'll give them that. They don't feel super necessary for an actual Tremor team. Losing off on the Gloom is my big concern. Really? Alright, so final thoughts on these. My big opinion that people will probably push back on is that they feel slow. I know we watched Don Quixote deal 550 damage with her skill 3 in that fight. The issue with that is that it was because she was able to both inflict Time Moratorium and then inflict it again by herself. Rhodia didn't actually contribute to that. And the main reason this makes me very anxious about using them in a proper Tremor team is Time Moratorium will really slow you down if you don't have a way to instantly trigger it on the next turn. Even if it will automatically trigger at the end of the turn, it does do sloth damage, so if the enemy is weak to sloth, it is going to probably slow you down overall, since it goes off of how much damage you dealt. If it dealt pure damage, it would be so much better. As it is now, you can definitely run these IDs in Tremor. Again, I feel like missing out on the additional on the additional Sin generation with Rose Spanner Rhodia is maybe questionable. You could absolutely bring Don Quixote over your divider, Ryoshu, because that way you actually get her support passive to get one person more Tremor count on themselves, and I feel like the optimal target for that is still Honglu. Like, Dawn was gaining a ton of Tremor count that entire fight, and I think it's because her skill 2 can give her 6. Sorry, it gives 8. But yeah, they're pretty good. And that's really all I have to say about them. I didn't actually check to see if they were part of the event, if they're actually time-killing time IDs or just regular Kanto 6 IDs. I assume they're time-killing time IDs, which would make this the first banner that is exclusive, that has occurred. It's the first time an event has had 2 banners, is what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, that's just my thoughts on it, though. You might have a different opinion on them. I'll probably be running Dawn in my Tremor teams just because she seems pretty fun. I don't think I'll be running Rhodia if I'm actually, like, trying to do things. Like, I'm absolutely not going to use Rhodia in Railway when that does happen. But if I do play Tremor in Railway, you will 100% see Dawn. That is not even a question. So, thank you all for watching. I appreciate you being patient with me with, like, no updates. I haven't been doing anything. I don't even have a script started for another guide because I have to be job hunting right now. Don't expect to see another big guide like the burn and sinking ones for a little while. I might try to do like a smaller video in between to see if I can't like have something to put out in the meantime. I've also been playing a lot of Master Duel, so I have to grind because I have a new deck that has like 30 URs in it. But don't worry about it. That's not important. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. And I hope to see you back again soon. Bye-bye!